Hi there. I'm Karen Marie. I'm a professional psychic and musician, and this is Psyched Up. This is Sunday, April 5th, 2020. Today, I felt guided to talk about my children and some psychic stories that are connected to my kids. I have six children, and I've homeschooled them all. Here's a photo of the six of them. In the middle in the pink sweater is Khadijah. She's now 33. Next to her, Samantha is 28. Malachi, 26. Genoa is now 24. Jaden in the glasses there is 22. And Rafe, the baby, it'll be 17 at the end of this month. So before I even conceived my first child, Khadijah, I had this feeling. I thought initially maybe it was a new guide that had come in. I couldn't quite articulate what I was feeling. It felt like a new energy around me. And then when I had her, I recognized her as the energy that I had felt around me even before I conceived her. So then my first two are almost 5 years apart. About 6 months before I conceived Samantha, I started feeling the same feeling. And this time I knew, like, oh, I think I have a little soul hanging around that wants to come through. And sure enough, she did. And her energy was the same as what I picked up once I looked at her. I'm like, okay, this is that same energy. So ever since then, I've been able to pick up on souls hanging out around others. Is one of my specialties with clients, is really be able to feel out if there's souls hanging out waiting to be conceived. And I got a confirmation on that when my number 5 child was 4 years old. I've gotten the best intel from my kids when they're like 3 to 4 years old. And so Jaden, he's this age, and he's telling me one day, Mommy, I'm so glad I picked you. And I said to him, Jaden, I'm really glad you picked me too. Why did you pick me? And he said, because you were the only one smiling. So, and then he went on to say that he had to wait in my line for a long time though. But when it was his turn, he was, and he was in my tummy. So I thought that was really cool. So he's my number 5. So he had to wait in my line for a long time. Pretty cool. So it was kind of confirming that the souls do kind of hang out and wait. Telepathy. I don't have it. I do not read people's minds. Thankfully, I'm sorry. I feel sorry for those of you that do. But 2 of my kids have what's displayed, I guess is the word, telepathy. So again, around 3 and 4, my oldest daughter, Khadijah, out of her mouth so consistently would be my thoughts, verbatim, what I was thinking she'd be saying. But when I would tune into her, she didn't seem to be conscious the fact that she was tapped into me. So none of the rest of my kids displayed those abilities. It was only there for a short time that she was showing that. When she was 10, however, I came home from a psychic fair one day, and I had taken a Kirlian photography photo where you put your hands in these little machines and they generate a Polaroid photo of what your aura is supposed to look like. So I brought it home from a psychic fair I'd worked, and I had tossed it on the table, and my 10-year-old daughter comes and picks up the picture, and she looks at the picture and she looks at me, and she looks at the picture and she looks at me, and she's like, Mom, you have a whole lot more blue in your aura than this photograph. And she throws it back down on the table. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. Do you see auras? She's like, yeah, don't you? Nope. Sure don't. That's really cool, though. Tell me more about it. So, psychic abilities are vast and varied, and they don't show up the same in everyone. And no one person that I've ever met has all the abilities showing up, like clairaudience and clairsentience and clairvoyance. And there's just a whole way. Every way that you have senses, psychic abilities can show up. So people can see visually things that aren't there. You can hear things that aren't there, feel things that aren't there, like the whole thing, smell things that aren't there. It's all, or I won't say aren't there, but then where everyone else doesn't pick up on it. Obviously, it's there on some level, or you wouldn't be able to pick up on it. So none of the rest of my kids had displayed the telepathic abilities until number 6, Rafe. Same thing. He's like 3 and 4, starting to verbatim say what's out of my mind, except this is a different child. This child, I'm like, are you aware that you're tapped into my mind? I think you might be. Not quite sure. Not going to ask him directly. I'm just noticing the phenomena of the child being a little trumpet for my thoughts. I'm walking him in a jogging stroller one day, and I'm pushing him. I'm behind him, right? My shoelace comes untied. And I think to myself, I'm going to have to stop and tie my shoes. My little 4-year-old says to me out loud, well, you wouldn't have to stop to tie your shoes if you had no tie shoes like me. he had Velcro shoes on. And he was having a conversation with my thoughts. And yes, he was conscious of it. So there you go. Okay. So Genoa, my number 4-year-old, super sensitive. I had smiley, smiley, happy babies until Genoa. She was number 4, and she scowled at everyone. And I believe it's because she was so sensitive and didn't want people getting too close. Like, back off. Like, she would just, someone tried to, oh, what a cute little baby. She'd start furrowing her eyebrows and start scowling, like, back off. Don't go get near me. But she was just emotionally sensitive. I was in a really rough place with her dad when she was conceived and born. And she, I think, picked up all of it and was just crying all the time. Just, oh my God, poor baby. So I had discovered essential oils before she was born and had been working with them for years. I'm going to give a shout out to my girlfriend Cassandra Noel, because she's the one who turned me on to using essential oils in a healing modality. And she would pick them intuitively for me, and we'd make a batch or concoction and go home and take them, put in my tub and do a tub soak and have this cathartic emotional release clearing. So I knew they were super powerful. So I had gone over one day to get a new concoction batch for me, and I'd taken my 2-year-old Genoa with me. Well, as usual, she was scowling and crying and didn't want to have it. And so I would try to introduce her to Cassandra, but she wouldn't even look at her. Fine, whatever. We ignored her, put her down on the ground. She started running around, and we started, looking at the oils. And she was too. She started picking up the oils and bringing them to us to undo. And then we'd say, well, where do you want to put this? And she'd do here or whatever. And so Cassandra noticed, like, she's picking the same oils I'd pick for her and putting them exactly where I'd put them. So in the space of less than 10 minutes, she went from scowling, crying, wouldn't look at either one of us, to laughing, hugging us both. It was such a miraculous shift in the space of such a few minutes. So we both wish we had it on videotape. Cassandra and I have talked many times since, wishing we had that episode on videotape to prove the power of the essential oils on the emotional body. So fast forward a couple years later, she's in the tub. She's 4 years old, and she's been coughing. And so I brought her some oils and put them on her throat, and she stopped coughing. And she said, Mommy, how come the oils work so well for me? And I had a flashback at that point, which I'll do out of nowhere. I'll have these past life flashbacks that'll just come, kind of like childhood flashbacks. They'll just come out of nowhere. Past life flashbacks come like that for me. And I could see us in Egypt together. And she, ever since she was itty bitty, she wanted to brush my hair. She wanted to put lotion on me. She wanted to put makeup on my face. She wanted to paint my nails. She just wanted, like, hands on, take care of mama. And in this scene, I flash back to seeing her in Egypt being my slave, basically, my assistant. And we were rubbing oils. She was rubbing oils on me. And so I said to her, well, I think we've worked with oils together, sweetheart. Do you remember when we used to live in Egypt together? And now she had just had a unit study at our homeschooling co-op on Egypt. So she'd had some introduction, and she sits a little quietly. She goes, yeah, that was a long time ago. So yeah, it was a long time ago. So my kids picking up on past lives at age 4. Yep. And aware of things on all kinds of levels. Sensitive kids, I was a sensitive kid. I didn't really feel like I fit in well with the world around me. And it wasn't until I became an adult and really started plugging into and developing my psychic abilities, and that was after I found my Buddhist practice, that I started being able to understand myself, because I couldn't find anyone like me out in the world. Like, I didn't relate to my family. It didn't seem to relate to people. It's like, I don't know. I just couldn't. I was a feeler, and I was overriding a lot of my feelings. So I shut down and I was imploding. Anyway, that's all diatribe about my stuff. Back to my children. If it weren't for homeschooling my children. Now, I started homeschooling my children. I've homeschooled all 6 of them. I started homeschooling after I put my oldest daughter into public kindergarten first, which confirmed that I wanted to homeschool, because she was being sent home with discipline notes every day from school that she won't sit quietly and finish coloring the letter A, which she already knew how to read in kindergarten. So I started homeschooling her in first grade. And my hypothesis in homeschooling was very similar to my hypothesis in my psychic work, which is that we're all intuitive. We all have an intuition that we can tap into. And I believed that my children all kind of knew what they came in here to do. And my job was to help facilitate and them discovering that and uncovering that rather than me telling them what to do or planting ideas in their head, which is how I was taught. This is what you should learn. This is what you should do. Da, 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 da. And my finding myself was about risking going in the direction I felt called or pulled rather than what I was told or what I thought was natural, logical. So even in the choice of having my children and choosing to birth them at home and homeschool them and nurse them for years, all that was from guidance, what I felt guided to do. And then with my children, I felt like my number one job was to listen rather than to talk. Like, what do you have to say? Like, what do you know? Malachi, my third child, I asked him if he remembered anything about his birth or before his birth. And he said, I just remember someone tried to break my neck. And he was turned a little bit, and the midwives had to turn him by reaching his head, and then they grabbed his shoulder on the outside of my stomach and turned him in a quick maneuver that worked to get him into place. But so that's what he remembered, that someone tried to break his neck. And that was like, I guess he told me that at like 4 or 5, and he had remembered that from birth. So I want to invite you all to ask your children or grandchildren what they remember about their birth, before their birth. Do they remember anything? The little ones are going to be the best at it. Like 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, they're going to probably be able to tell you. If you just ask them, like, do you remember where you were before you were in my tummy? Questions like that can really uncover some of the really, really fabulous, neat conversation. So, sensitive kids are psychic kids. And a lot of sensitive kids will have emotional stuff that shows up in a physical way, like their tummies hurt, or, they'll have physical symptoms of their emotional imploding, that they're holding something emotional. So I've homeschooled all 6 of my children. They've all transitioned into school at various stages. I have 5 high school grads and 3 college grads. And my youngest, Rafe, is the first one that's continued to homeschool through high school because he already found his path as a professional musician and is happy to be spending lots of time practicing, which is what he needs the most. So I find myself in a unique position here in this coronavirus to already be ahead of the game when it comes to homeschooling and know how to master that. So if you need help with that, let me know. I'd be happy to do a psychic consultation, looking at your chart, your kids' chart, seeing what the best plan is for them. If you're feeling clueless and lost when it comes to helping your kids out right now, I'd be happy to consult with you for that. So let me know. My website is KarenMariePsychic.com, KarenPsychic.com. Y'all stay safe. Listen to your intuition. Listen to those kids.